All right. Took some time off from coding to get here, so thanks for coming. So yeah, I'm Kevin Winston, founder of Digital LA and director of the Silicon Beach Fest. Thank you. We started Digital LA about 4 years ago for digital entertainment, tech, and startups. And after about 4 years, we thought, why don't we do a festival? But basically, it's a 2.5-day conference, bringing together folks in the startup world, the entertainment world, and tech, because LA is all of those things. So about 2 months ago, I had the idea with some friends. We were like, hey, why don't we get this started? We wanted to do it the first weekend of summer, which is this weekend. So because it makes sense to have a Silicon Beach Fest at the first weekend of summer. So in 2 weeks, it seemed like a crazy task to put together a entire festival, 2.5 days, in 2 months. But we rallied some folks, and everyone thought it was a great idea. And a lot of the community here has organized other events at other festivals like South by Southwest. Everyone has their panels and mixtures, so we all do things abroad. So why don't we do something right here in LA to celebrate the tech community in LA? So let's give it up for LA Tech! Thank you. So we're super excited that you're here for this morning's announcements. We have Eric Garcetti, who is a LA City Council member and mayoral candidate here. He's going to get up here in a few minutes to give our opening welcome. And then afterwards we'll have some other information about what's going on over the next 2.5 days to kind of do like a mini orientation. And then we'll wrap it up because the next panels start at 10 o'clock. We have a bunch of cool content all over the place celebrating innovation, tech, accelerators, VCs, all over the West Side from Santa Monica to Venice. So let's get this show on the road. So I'd like to introduce you guys to Dan. He's one of the founders of Cross Campus, this gorgeous facility that we're in. It just opened about a month ago, and I'll let Dan tell you a little bit about that for a minute, and then we'll introduce Ronan, and then he'll introduce Eric. So, hey, Dan.
Hey. Thank you. Give it up for Kevin. The amount of work that he has put into this, along with Jason Crilly and a bunch of other folks. You see them wearing red T-shirts here. They're volunteering. Richard helping out coordinate the volunteers, and Brandy. We've had a lot of people involved in making this a reality in such a short time. So please, give it up for them again. Also, we've had a lot of sponsors help us make this a reality, and you'll see them up here on the screen. There's tons, and it takes a lot of resources to make something like this come about. Also here at Cross Campus, we've had a number of people help us. PwC, Stubbs Alderton Margulies, Knoll Furniture and Western Office Interiors. They're all set up around the space. Please visit them and see what they have to offer, because they're all here because they care about entrepreneurs and startups. They're trying to help build this infrastructure and ecosystem that we have. So please talk to them. So with that, I want to introduce my co-founder, Ronan Olszewski.
This is amazing. The last 24 hours has been incredible. For those of you who were here yesterday for the hackathon, it's just incredible. And for Dan and myself and for our team, it's particularly amazing because we've been building Cross Campus for the last 2 or 3 months. So to see it come alive with all of these hackers and the coaches is it's mind-blowing. And that's what we need more of in Los Angeles, is that type of creativity. But what we also need is we need strong support from our local government if we're going to take it to the next level. And probably the politician most associated with supporting tech today is Mayor Michael Bloomberg of New York. So a lot of you have seen the rise of New York City as a tech center in the last few years, giving the Bay Area a run for its money. A lot of that is because of the policies and the business environment created by Michael Bloomberg. We need, in LA, our own Michael Bloomberg. And in Eric Garcetti, we have a politician who gets tech and who's also passionate and supportive of technology and entrepreneurship. So, friends, fellow hackers, startups, freelancers, entrepreneurs, welcome to the stage, council member and future mayor of Los Angeles, Eric Garcetti.
Thank you, Ronan. Good morning. I want to be just completely honest. The comparison with Michael Bloomberg I appreciate, but I am not a billionaire. And I cannot bring tens of billions of dollars. But I appreciate, Ronan, the introduction, what you and Dan are doing here, and Kevin for putting this together. Give Kevin another round of applause for getting us together. For those of you from the hacker community, this is called the morning, and this is called a tie. So excuse both of them, and I really appreciate you being here to look at so early a strange way of dressing. That's just what we do in my profession. But it is really exciting to be here, and I couldn't be more thrilled that you've asked me to give keynote address here at the beginning of Silicon Beach Fest. I've been spending probably at least a day a week as a public policymaker looking at the explosion of technology in Los Angeles. And I have a very simple, idea that we can do together, which is to make Los Angeles the most creative and innovative tech hub anywhere in the world. If we do that here in Los Angeles, we're not going to be recreating a city. We're going to be building on what we have always done and what we have always been about in Los Angeles. When you think about this city and the ingredients that we have here, other cities in the world would die to have what we have. The people, with their creativity and their diversity, the weather as soon as the fog burns off, the incredible geography being the eastern capital of the Pacific Rim, the northern capital of Latin America, the western capital of the United States, and all of the elements that we put in place here over years, which was that we are the most fearless city in the world and the most American city in America. And I'll tell you what I mean about that in a second. But I want to run through a few ideas of how we can do this together. Los Angeles, it is pretty easy to say, is the place where dreams come true. It is a place where there's somebody getting off the bus this morning at the Greyhound terminal in Hollywood, in the district that I represent, who wants to be the next big star. There's somebody who's going to be getting off a plane today from a flight that originated overseas, who's coming to Los Angeles because of what they think about this place. You see, I represent Hollywood, as well as some other neighborhoods like Silver Lake Echo Park in the heart of Los Angeles. But Hollywood, for a moment, is both a place and an idea. In other words, it's the incarnation of a physical neighborhood, but it is also an inspiration to the world. The world knows us long before we meet them. I remember in 2002 traveling to South Korea. It was right after 9/11 had happened, and we went to East Asia to bring tourists back to assure them that it was safe to be in America again. And I met with Kim Dae-jung, who's the president at the time of South Korea. We met at the Blue House, which is what they call the White House there, and we had this incredible conversation. He knew more about LA politics practically than we did because this is such an important Korean city. And you can actually do that for about 37 different countries that find their largest populations outside the home country here in LA, which I'll get back to. But after we were done, we gave him, the typical kind of beautiful protocol gift. I think it was a crystal bowl from Tiffany, and it was engraved from the people of Los Angeles, and he was very thankful. But then he pointed at me and he said, "Can I have that?" I thought he wanted my suit jacket, but I forgot I was wearing a small lapel pin that the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce makes of the Hollywood sign. Here was this man who was a great world leader. He was a Nobel Peace Prize winner. He had been in prison for years fighting for democracy, and we gave him what I thought was a really nice bowl, but what he really wanted was the $1.50 lapel pin. And it hit me that the responsibility and the privilege we have is to bring those two things together, the idea of Hollywood and the place of Hollywood as one. In the entertainment industry, people say content is king, and it goes in the technology industry as well. You can have the best platform in the world. You can have the best distribution system for your movies. You can have great movie theaters. If you don't have good stories, if you don't have good content, you can't be successful. And it is the same with our strategy here in Los Angeles for making Los Angeles this creative and innovative tech hub. We have to make sure that the content here that we put in, that we pour into the city through public policy and through other things, is as strong as we can make it. So I want to throw out to you 4 concepts about Los Angeles. Los Angeles as the mashup city, Los Angeles as a city as platform, Los Angeles as a smart city, and Los Angeles as a hub. These 4 concepts, I think, can reposition Los Angeles to build on the strengths that we have. And as we look at kind of the third great, at least internet-based tech explosion that is upon us, LA is poised to win that, to be able to win that competition, to not only bring companies here, but to grow them here. And I know that's what you are about. And I think that government can play a critical role in making sure that that happens. I want you to innovate here and invest here. I want you to play here and stay here. And I also want you to experiment in LA and excel. Let's start with the first concept, this mashup city. LA, as I mentioned, has 37 countries that find their largest populations outside their home country. That's never happened in human history before. But if you think about it, even one step further, sometimes we're the second largest city of people of different ethnicities in the world. For instance, for folks who are of Mexican descent, you go to Mexico City for the largest city. LA is number 2, and then you go back to Mexico for number 3. My own life is a mashup, only made possible here in LA. I have an Italian last name. I'm half Mexican, half Jewish. Both sides of my family came here fleeing war in the last century, the Russo-Japanese War on the Jewish side and the Mexican Revolution on my dad's side. My grandfather was carried over the border in his mother's arms after she lost her husband, my great-grandfather, in that war, and they settled here in Boyle Heights. In Boyle Heights, too, talk about early mashups, that's also where my Jewish side settled. Now, it's predominantly Latino now, but you can still get pastrami at all the taco stands along Cesar Chavez Avenue, so there's evidence that Jews were there. Every year, we do a klezmer mariachi festival to look at those two different strains. I had a friend who just had his son bar mitzvahed for the first time in 50 years at the Breed Street Shul where my great-grandfather used to go. And when you look at the opportunities that that mashup gives us, when I think about my own family story, that grandfather that came here when he was 1 year old would have been classified as a kind of classic at-risk youth. He got into trouble, never graduated from 8th grade. I remember watching television as a boy and seeing a very distinguished African-American gentleman on television, and my grandfather says, "I know that man, he's the mayor of our city, Tom Bradley." And I was so impressed he knew Tom Bradley. When I asked him, "How do you know Tom Bradley?" he said, "Well, when he was younger, he arrested me," because he was an LAPD officer before he was a mayor. So I don't know if it was that, or falling in love with my grandmother, or going off and fighting World War II when he got then his citizenship. I was actually just on Ancestry.com this weekend for Father's Day, looking at when he first enlisted in the Army and then got his citizenship papers. It was pretty cool to see. But he came back to LA and became part of this city of opportunity. He was a barber around the corner from USC, and so much of what we have to do here is connect people with social capital. And because he cut the hair of USC professors, my father, who had nobody in his family who'd ever gone to college, who grew up in South Los Angeles, went to Washington High School, talked to these professors who encouraged him to study hard and go to school, and he got a scholarship to attend USC. And then my first job when I came back here after grad school was teaching at USC. This is the kind of city of opportunity where you can be the professor that was in your grandfather's barber's chair 2 generations before. On my Jewish side, my grandfather, who was born here to immigrant parents, was a tailor. And he built a great men's clothing company called Louis Roth Clothes, named after my great-grandfather. If you ever go downtown to the Palm Restaurant, right next to it near Staples is a kind of loft area. That used to be his old factory. And Jack Valenti was one of his old customers, a guy who worked in the entertainment industry. And when President Johnson was elevated after President Kennedy's assassination, he tapped Valenti to come to D.C. And the first thing he did when he looked at President Johnson, he said, "You're the President of the United States now. Look at that suit you're wearing. You look like a schlub. I know this guy out in L.A. who makes a really nice suit." And my grandfather became tailor to the President of the United States of America a generation after his father had come here. Now, I tell both those stories because the idea of the mashup, of bringing these cultures together, where only in L.A. will a Korean short rib taco, be the latest craze. Only here will we be able to find, literally, as you walk the streets of L.A., the face of the world, gives us an added advantage outside of L.A. You see, growing up here with that staggering diversity, I was just at Hollywood High School giving their commencement address, and there were 32 countries of origin that the students came from. A Mongolian-American student who was being honored for his service in JROTC, a Salvadorian-American valedictorian who's going to Harvard next year, a Mexican-American undocumented immigrant whose mother is a seamstress who's been putting money aside every single month so that her daughter could go to college, even though she's not yet a citizen and has never known any place but the United States as home. I saw the Cameroon and the Sri Lankan and all of these kids that were on the stage together, loving this city, loving this place, and not thinking twice about it. The advantage of being able to see the face of the world on the streets of L.A. is when you leave L.A. and you're on the streets of the world, you see the face of L.A. So the idea of this mashup and the advantages that we have here, whether it's not just our ethnic matchup, it's also our industries. Here, if you want to do tech, but you wanted to connect with art, this is the contemporary art capital of the world now. If you're doing tech and you want to connect with fashion, we've got more fashion going on here than in New York. If you want to do tech and you want it, of course, to link with entertainment, as so much of the bandwidth becomes video content, what better place here than here because we have the storytellers and the story makers of the world. So second, let me turn to, and one other thing I want to say too is there's also a mashup even within technology itself. When you think about LA, we don't have to position or sell ourselves as a tech center. We are a tech center. And I'm not just talking about the internet. I'm not just talking about kind of new tech. Look at the aerospace industry that we have here. Look at the research institutions we have here. I went to the largest clean room in the world a few months ago that Northrop Grumman runs, where the successor to the Hubble Space Telescope, the James Webb Space Telescope, is being built. And as they described to me the power that this telescope will have, it is so powerful, it will be able to look so far back, it will see far back enough to see the Big Bang. Imagine that for a moment. And so when we look at the technology mashup that we have here, you have the opportunity to bring these pieces together, but only in LA. They're all in one city together. Second, we need to start exploring the idea of the city as a platform for innovation, as a platform for creativity, as a platform for celebration. How many of you guys went out to Ciclavia, or even know what Ciclavia is? All right. So Ciclavia is a kind of play on words of ciclovia, which means bicycle way. It comes from South America. In Bogota, Colombia, they started closing the central streets to cars on the weekends and inviting people to bring their bicycles. We now have the largest such kind of celebration in America. Here we've done it 4 times between East Hollywood and Boyle Heights. Through downtown, we closed off a space that's 10 times longer than Central Park. And 150,000 cyclists came out last time, as well as tens of thousands of pedestrians and other folks just to the streets of LA. In other words, the city became a platform for celebration that afternoon. We've got the weather, we've got the food trucks, we've got the bands, we've got all of the content that we need. People were able to pour that content in without it being centrally directed by government. For a couple $100,000, we were able to cover the cost that we had as city government, but all of a sudden people were saying, wow, this is an amazing city. We should be able to do that every month. We should be able to change that around where we are. Give people a sense of what this city is from the street level, not just in the bubble of a car. When we look at the city as a platform to use our own assets here, I want to position this city, not just as council member now, but hopefully as your next mayor, to be able to say, if you want to see if your product works, come here. This is the platform. If you want to know if it works in the world, what better place than a city where 180 languages are spoken, where you could actually test and see if it fits culturally, if it fits socially, politically, into all of these communities. If you want to look at the most diverse economy in the United States of America, this is the best platform. We don't really have a dominant industry here. If you look at the top 10 industries that we have, we are the most diverse economy anywhere in America. So that's the city as platform. The number 3, let's start building a smart city. Because I got to say, we have an awfully dumb city here. It is time for us to look at the idea of a smart city. And this is where government really can make a difference and inspire tech entrepreneurs and creators to make this place home. I was talking to one of the top VC funders for startups here in the technology space, and he said, I really like what you're doing, Eric, in a number of areas. We have to clean up our act in terms of the city of LA having a gross receipts tax, for instance, which some of you may pay. It's a tax on business that taxes literally your gross receipts. You can have $10 million come through your company, net -2, and we still tax your $10 million. So why would people want to come to the city of LA when they can be in a neighboring city or another place? So I'm working to abolish that, and I've already passed legislation to get rid of that in certain sectors, including a very low rate in the tech sector. I like what you're doing, he said, in reducing red tape and making sure that when you start a business, you don't have 12 different departments that can slow you up, trying to reduce that and distill it down to 2, which is a project I'm engaged in right now. But he said, all that aside, the best thing that you can do is continue to create great neighborhoods. He said, people are coming here because they want to be in Santa Monica or Venice. They want to be downtown. They want to be in Silver Lake or Hollywood. That what government can do is create great neighborhoods, whether it's that kind of ciclovia thing, whether it's a farmer's market or a community garden. Things that make a neighborhood exciting will keep people here. But if you look at the idea of a smart city right now, I mean, right now, if we were to design city government, for instance, just how we interact with city services, it would be exactly the opposite of what we have. We have a very closed system where we share no information, and we need to change that to an open system. We have a very static set of departments and kind of culture. We need to make that a culture of innovation. And we have a very siloed city instead of an integrated city. Think about government right now. If all of us were to create a new city, say we had Sim City, and we were going to build it out right now, and there's 10 million people here in LA County, why would we ever have created what we have? 88 different cities. The largest is the city of LA at 4 million, but then the next largest is Long Beach at 500,000, and then there's 86 other cities all the way down to Vernon, where supposedly 25 people live, and everything in between. And then the different levels of government, so that's kind of the horizontal axis. On the vertical axis, we separated the schools from the city. We separated the city from the county. We have a different level of government for our transportation called metro. We have a different level of government for our air and for our water. If you have a rat or a roach problem, we've got another level of government for you. It's called vector control, and it's independent from all the rest. We've got over 27 levels of government. So when we look at the integration, because for a business or for a human being, we don't really care where one jurisdiction begins and the other ends, whether it's a city border or whether it's a bureaucratic border. We must look at integrating those, and I think technology can do that. When we think about the most simple things that we provide in government, like city services, 311 was a very cutting-edge innovation 10 years ago. But if you tried calling 311 now, and they say, well, let me figure out, I got to transfer you to the right department. All it is essentially a call center where they then try to get you to the department, and it may be a good department, but it may be one that puts you on hold for 20 minutes. So in my district, we worked with CitySource, a locally based company here, to develop one of the first smartphone apps to be able to look at basic city services. It's called Garcetti 311. It works in my district. You'll have to elect me mayor if you want it to come to your neighborhood too. But if you open up your phone and you just hit submit a report, you can submit a report either with your camera phone, or you can do a video clip if it's a dangerous intersection. Take your picture of whatever it is. Let's say that was graffiti. And then after you look at this, you just, with a GPS in here, it knows exactly where it is. You pull down the menu, say what it is, and then hit send. And then 2 days later, when the graffiti's painted out, or that pothole is filled, or that couch is picked up on the street, we can text you back and tell you it's done. At a fraction of the cost, 24 hours a day. And then that empowers you to say, okay, I fixed that pothole. I got that graffiti painted out on my garage. What next can I do? Maybe I can help turn around a school in my community, or build a park where that empty lot is. Or maybe I can get engaged with trying to take public transit once a week and reduce some of the car trips we have. Or figure out how I can come out to a public meeting and make sure we have good things built in our neighborhoods instead of the kind of failed planning that we have, unfortunately, west of the 405 freeway here, where we have for every 4 jobs, 1 unit of housing. So the traffic, except on a day like today for some miraculous reason, there's 3 jobs that have to drive in and out of this region every single day. So we can be smart, and we have to be smart. Think about how we can be smarter and build a smart city just around education. Any of you guys know Game Desk? Ever heard of a company called Game Desk? So Game Desk came out of a bunch of researchers at USC. They're just by the 405 freeway here on the other side of the freeway. And they were video game programmers and animators who wanted to take that medium to the classroom. So I visited them a few weeks ago. The first thing they said is, do you want to fly? I said, hell yeah, we all want to fly. I said, but well, why don't you put on these wings? And they put on these wings that were a video game controller and put me in front of a giant screen, and suddenly there's an avatar of me as an albatross flying. And, they said, well, tilt your wings down. And the bird went down, and tilt them up, and the bird would go up, and then twist them, torque them, away from each other, and that's how a bird turns. It's not by tilting their wings, but by having opposite twists. And all of a sudden they said, well, now we're going to layer some basic physics lessons. Here's gravity. And no matter what the bird did, you could see gravity stayed constant. And then they taught me about lift. And by the end of this lesson, I knew more about flying than I'd ever known in my life. I had covered the basic physics requirements of the classroom, and yet I didn't feel like I was in school. Kids who are doing this, they have about 25 different games now that are just the basic modules of the classroom. That's happening right here in LA. And classic LA, they said, we're getting all this attention now across the country, but nobody is marketing us here in LA. Nobody knows about us here. We can do that, and we can build that smart city. Imagine if we became the first school district in the country to teach not only great foreign languages like Spanish and Mandarin, but also computer programming languages in our schools, to offer that at least to every single student. Or to teach, yeah, absolutely. Or to teach entrepreneurialism to every high school grad. We just developed something called Business in a Box, in which high school students can graduate having started their own first business. Not like a junior achievement pseudo business, but actually a box that has all your paperwork, all your lessons, everything, so that when you graduate high school, you are already a businesswoman or a businessman. Because there's not going to be a factory job waiting for you in the new economy. You're going to have to create your prosperity. So the last thing is, how do we make LA be a hub? This hub for innovation, a hub which the world already passes through. 43% of the country's goods that come through our ports. Well, LAX is the #1 airport of origination and destination in the country. We have the culture and the geography that I mentioned. We are poised to make this be an incredibly important hub. So what do we need to do from a public policy and branding perspective? Well, we need to take our institutions that are here, Caltech, where more patents come out of that university than any university in the world. Second is UC's when you combine all their campuses, and we've got one of them here. And now USC is also killing it, doing work to try to get that stuff from the classroom. Got a couple Trojans there? Getting that work from the research and classroom out into private sector. It's no mistake Silicon Valley is right by Stanford and Berkeley. LA has to start stepping up and making that bridge between the ideas and the innovation to actual landing businesses and making it happen here. And let me close with a couple things, because I think I've probably gone on a little long. I am convinced that LA's best chapter is about to be written. But in LA, we have been tremendously good at being divided and siloed. We're remarkably articulate about what's wrong and what we're against. And we kind of increasingly have lived lives that turned away from each other. As in technology, a prosperous city turns its face to itself, to one another, creates the synapses and the connections and the bridges between people and communities and innovation, and LA is going to be that city. In my words that I said to the students at Hollywood High School, I quoted a good friend of mine who kind of come up together, an old friend who's now the mayor of Newark, who gave a graduation address at Bard College recently, Cory Booker. And I kind of took his words and paraphrased a little bit. And I said to the students, I would rather risk my ship wrecking at sea in a storm than have it rot in the harbor. LA, we cannot let this moment of technological innovation, of Silicon Beach, of a tech LA, of this mashup, hub of a city, go to waste and rot in harbor. Let us set out to sea. Let us find those shores. Let us come together and celebrate the greatest municipality that's ever been put together in human history. And let's look back 10 years from now and say, we said who we were, we told our story, and it was that Los Angeles was the most innovative and creative tech hub anywhere in the world. Thank you for what you're doing, and we want you here. Appreciate it. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Yeah, awesome. Thank you.